Everybody to another edition of Pure Picks. Joined here by my man Alex. How are you doing tonight, Alex?
I'm doing very well, James. Fresh off a dub in the last card, and so hoping to carry that momentum forward. So doing very well.
That's great to hear, man. And before we get started breaking down UFC 297, as Alex mentioned, would really love to just recap some stuff that happened the last fight night, just so we can see where we came from, what kind of decisions we made, and constantly just improve for the next time. Right off the bat, I want to go over one of the parlays that we had. First one was a three-legger. I believe that this was something that I mentioned on the breakdown. It was Fareed Basharat, Magomed Ankalaev, and Joshua Van three-legger. I just love that as a lock. I mean, all three of those guys pretty much won decisively, in my opinion. I think Fareed might have had some scary moments in there, but he constantly chain wrestled, really proved that cardio that we were talking about that he had for these 3 round fights. So that was a really good one. Obviously, Magomed KO'd whatever Johnny Walker was doing that night, and we had to ride the Van train one more time. I mean, that was a very it was a little dicey round one. I'm not gonna lie. That looked he looked like he was pulling off his standard lose round one, and then but hey, he came back and he showed that he got a lot of hard determination, also high IQ. This guy downloaded a lot of his opponent's kind of movements in round one and kind of took it from there. So really good parlay, and I think Alex wanted to go over for the next one, so I'll let him take over from there.
Yep. So the next one was a loss. Actually, we picked Van to win by decision. Um, so yeah, just like kind of reflecting on this bet. Um, at the moment, I thought it was good because obviously Van lost round one. I thought it was going to be another one of those patented, okay, lose round one, win rounds two and three. But it turned out that Bunez, I think he took a little bit too much damage from Van, the headshots, the body shots, and so I think just looking forward, I think Van is definitely like maybe a play, for KO in rounds 2/3, something like
Yeah.
that. And then depending on the opponent, I think decision, wins by decision is still going to be, a decent bet moving forward, depending on the opponent. But I think, it is important to note that it does look like Van has a tendency to lose round one.
Yeah.
Um, for whatever reason, maybe what James mentioned, kind of just downloading that data of like what the opponent is doing, and then kind of counteracting that, pushing the pace in rounds two and three. But it definitely is something to note. So that's the loss for Van's. Joshua Van wins by decision. Then the next bet that we had was the over 2.5 for Fareed Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus and Ankalaev to win. So I'll start with the Ankalaev to win. I said in my best bets video, this one was free money, and I really believed it. I just saw no chance. Johnny Walker, he had no chance at a victory. So not much to say there. For the over 2.5, Basharat and Lapilus, I think both of these guys are very uh, low. They're very like careful fighters, I want to say. Lapilus, he doesn't throw much volume. He's more of a counter puncher. And obviously Basharat, he has that chain wrestling. Um, but one thing I do want to highlight is that I think Basharat is very, very legit. This is a guy that you definitely want to have your money on in the future.
Yes.
That pace and pressure that he put on was really incredible, and so I feel very confident in Basharat having success in a very stacked bantamweight division. But yeah, I liked what I saw, and glad the two leg parlay hit as well.
Yeah, that was a fantastic value in my opinion, over 2.5, because it was actually much better value going that route than Fareed Basher at money line even. So I think that's something that was a great play. And to your point of, yeah, Fareed's, he's been on my money list. I keep a list of fighters that I just feel comfortable putting money on, or like units on, right? These guys, obviously, Brad's like Fareed's like undefeated as well, so it just gives me a comforting sense to put some of these guys in parlay sometimes, as opposed to some of these not so great fighters that sometimes we want to force plays on. So I always keep a list of people that do well. Next parlay that I wanted to go over, this one was to me at least, it was free money because the under 1.5 on Bruno and Phil, it did look a little dicey in the beginning when Bruno was out grappling Phil and took him down. But once they got back up on their feet, you kind of saw both of these guys fight really recklessly on the feet, and whoever's chin was going to go went. Unfortunately, it was Phil Hall's time to go, and that might have been a career ender right there. That was really tough to kind of see that because Phil's really talented. It's just if you don't have the durability for this game, sometimes that's just how it goes. The other leg of that parlay that I really liked was Ricky Simone over 2.5. And we kind of saw that too. I mean, these guys, both of them have pretty good durability. And when you're doing an over, especially, and if it's over 2.5, you really want these guys to have good durability, and they could have lacking cardio. Maybe they slow down a bit, but as long as they're able to take damage, survive submission attempts, these are the kind of fights that you really want to target the over 2.5. I really like that over 2.5, and it kind of saved me because I was on the Ricky side actually. So that's another point that I want to mention is that you could get the pick wrong as far as the fighter, but if you actually are able to adapt and choose another path that is more suitable for a play in that matchup, you can still save yourself some units at the end of the day, even if you pick the wrong fighter. So always recommend people to just explore other avenues, other paths that they could go down that could lead them to more profit at the end of the day. And that was a solid one where we put a unit down for plus 110. So I always like to get those juice odds as well. And I'll let Alex. I'll finish this one off. This one was just a wrong move, really, by our part. Turns out we backed the wrong fighter, right? Like kind of like I mentioned, it was Ricky Simon. We thought that he was going to win by decision, and that kind of played out the opposite. So I always find it more comfortable. Just for me personally, I find it more comfortable playing round props. Sorry, not round props, but like over unders, and then for the rounds, and then just straight money line. Like I'm not that great at picking like props per se, like wins by decision or wins by KO. That's just something that I've tracked my personally like tracked the ROI that I've been having, and I tend to stay away from those plays where I don't have good ROI. And so I like to just kind of keep it to, hey, pick straight money line or go over unders and then try to parlay those because I actually do pretty well in the parlay section, but I don't do well in the prop section. So also recommend people just keep track of whatever you're winning and losing by, right? That could be the difference between you going forward making the right decision or continuing to make the wrong decision. And we always want to continue to improve as we go on. Well, enough about that. Let's go to UFC 297, and this is going to be, you know, I hate to say this, but it is going to be a truly dangerous card, guys. Pure pickers, this is, I did some breakdown on this, and as I was just going through the fights, breaking down each matchup, I didn't see too many locks. I'm just being real with you guys. So for this fight card, especially after coming off of a decent night that we had last week, sometimes the best play is no play, or maybe try to play a little bit more defense this week because I personally just do not see that many spots. And that's just my personal preference. I'm a really conservative person. But yeah, Alex, what are your thoughts on the card overall before we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree with you. It's going to be a very tricky card. I'm just looking through my notes right now. I don't have very many high conviction plays, only a couple. Uh, But with that said, I still think it'll be an exciting fight pay-per-view. So still looking forward to watching the fights. Definitely.
Definitely, definitely. Let's get into it. So first fight that we have is going to be Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. It's going to be a fight in the flyweight. It's going to be the first fight on the card. Malcolm Gordon right now, he is 14-7. He's coming 2-3 actually in his last five. He's going to fight Jimmy Flick, 16-7. He is 3-2 in his last five, but he's last two fights have been kind of a rocky start for him. He's come back after like a few years layoff, so not the best introduction back to fighting for him. They both around the same age, and in terms of measurables, pretty similar as well. Jimmy Flick, he's actually a plus 173 underdog right now. Malcolm Gordon's minus 203 as a favorite. And Malcolm Gordon actually opened up at a minus 119. So that's just to kind of tell you guys the odds right there. I'll let Alex go ahead and break down this fight first. Alex, what are your thoughts on Gordon versus Flick here?
Yep. So I think, first thing I kind of noticed was that Malcolm Gordon was overweight by 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds in his last fight. He still ended up losing to Jake Hadley. So I think, very pathetic showing in his last fight. Um, Breaking down the tape, I noticed that he has a very aggressive fighting style. Kind of likes to lunge in, almost like he's running forward and throwing strikes. Uh, and with that style, he's kind of prone to getting taken down, because fighters can kind of just level change as he's kind of lunging in, and he kind of gets off balance, and so it's kind of easy to get taken, have him get taken down that way. Um, then for Jimmy Flick, obviously he's coming off two very bad losses. In terms of his, fighting style, he's looking to get the fight down to the mat. And so, what I'm thinking is, Malcolm Gordon is susceptible to being taken down. Jimmy Flick likes to get the fight down to the mat. Um, so, I think Flick can potentially see some success in, with getting these takedowns. Um, but to kind of round it all up together, I am most likely staying away from this fight. Um, I would not. I definitely don't want to trust, either of these fighters with my money. There's just no way I can back a Malcolm Gordon at minus whatever he is, or a Jimmy Flick. So staying away from this one.
Yeah, and I actually agree with Alex. I mean, I don't want to, belabor the point. I'm staying far away from this fight as well. Just to kind of give you my thoughts on it, I guess. I mean, Malcolm Gordon, he actually does have legit jujitsu skills. I've been able to see that he's been able to perform, arm bars, kimuras, arm submissions from many angles. I think he scrambles pretty well as well. His striking is just okay, not the best striker, but he is able to pressure forward with power, and he has a high guard that somewhat protects him, but not all the time, as you guys have seen in his record. He uses unique angles to strike, just as he does with grappling, but Gordon has shown to be pretty chinny that I've seen. Flick is a pretty much just mostly a grappler. That I think that he has high level jiu-jitsu skills, especially early on in the UFC when he had his kind of first stint before the long layoff. He is a submission specialist. I mean, 14 sub wins in his career, zero sub losses. So this guy's very versed in the submission game. He's really good at chain submissions as well. Constantly threatens subs. If you look at his numbers, I mean, 4.4 sub attempts per 15 minutes per fight. That's pretty high. He also has decent takedowns at 1.66 takedowns landed per fight, and then a 27% takedown accuracy, which is not the best, but given his style, I think that that's something that's somewhat suitable. His striking, though, is just where there's a big hole in his game right now. I think that he came in as a below average striker, and after the long layoff, I mean, he's looked extremely rusty. His rhythm and just timing has just looked off in these last two fights that he's had. I believe he got knocked out by Charles Johnson. Not much of a knockout artist. He's not known as a knockout artist. and then he got knocked out by Costa. So I mean, there's just not too good of a resume so far for him. I think that how I see this fight mainly playing out is Malcolm Gordon is going to press forward and eventually land enough power shots to chin Jimmy Flick. I think the grappling, in a sense, will cancel each other out. Staying away from this, though. I think this is just two highly volatile fighters who will get into a volatile fight. We could even see like a sloppy decision fight, right? I mean, I think that anything right now is on the table for this specific fight. So prediction here is Gordon by KO, but I'm staying away from this fight, very far away from it. Let's move on to the next fight that we have. This is going to be Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Priscila Cachoeira. Not sure if I said her last name right. So Jasmine, she is 9-3. She is actually coming off a loss against Tracy Cortez. It was actually a pretty big fight for her, and she's 3-2 in her last five, so not too bad. She is 34 years old though. She's fighting against Zombie Girl Priscila, 12-5. She's 3-2 in her last five, and she's coming off a submission loss to Miranda Maverick. Let's look at the odds as well for this fight. Right now, Jasmine's actually a minus 360, and she opened up at a minus 400. So some heavy juice has been opened by the bookies, and some people are taking dog action, but she's still a pretty heavy favorite. I think that she's actually the second biggest favorite on this whole entire card so far. So a lot of confidence for Jasmine. I'll start off with Jasmine. I mean, I think she's a above average wrestler, has wrestling credentials even before she entered the UFC. Good top pressure, is able to control pretty well. She actually shoots solid takedowns. I mean, she has a 37% takedown accuracy, lands around two takedowns per fight. I think she also has a good takedown defense at 80%. And she's able to defend from subs pretty well. I think zero sub losses in her career. She also is able to clinch well and can hold her opponents up against the cage and control them. Her striking is still improving. I think she's decent, but the wrestling is and the grappling is where her bread and butter is. She's able to pressure forward and throw with volume, and then she can also hold her own unless she is up against a more dynamic striker like a Natalia Silva. Also, she has good cardio and durability. I think she's able to implement her game plan for all three rounds. She's never been finished, and she has 6-3 in decisions in her career. Priscilla is kind of the exact opposite. She's more so of a striker, a brawler, has legit power in her attacks. I think that her striking defense is pretty bad though, but she likes to trade one to give one. So she more so relies on that durability that she has. I don't think she's ever been KO'd yet in her entire career. The biggest hole that she's had is in her style and skill set is just the lack of grappling, right? When she's faced a not even sometimes not even a legit grappler, but usually when she faces grapplers, she loses. She did KO Gina Mazzani, but Gina had multiple KO losses before, and I think that's durability really played into Zombie Girl's advantage, right? Um, Also, another thing is Zombie Girl is a proven dirty fighter. Sometimes works to her advantage when she is not caught, but when she's caught, you might get a point deduction in her, and that's not a good place to be when you're, having maybe potential units on her. I believe that Jasmine will most likely control Zombie Girl for the majority of this fight, just taking her down and keeping her there. I do have a hesitation that Jasmine, she might not be as dangerous as a Miranda Maverick, for example. I think Jasmine only has one sub win in her career, and that was pre UFC. And Zombie Girl has mainly lost to grapplers when they are able to just sub and finish her. So Zombie Girl is actually 5-2 in decisions, and Jasmine's 6-3. So I could see this fight going to a decision, or Zombie Girl catching Jasmine clean with a power shot. Who knows? Pick right here is Jasmine by decision, but despite the heavily favored odds for Jasmine's side, I'm actually leaning towards staying away from this because I feel like Jasmine might not be as dangerous as Priscila Cachoeira's last opponents. So pick here is Jasmine by decision. But Alex, what do you think about this fight?
Um, so when I broke down this fight, I think, early thoughts was, Jasmine is definitely going to be holding the center of the octagon. Um, I see her as, the one holding center and moving forward. Um, and what I noticed was that, Jasmine is very comfortable being in grappling situations. However, I actually think that her takedown attempts are very weak. Um, in the Miranda Maverick fight, when Jasmine got the takedowns, it was always Miranda kind of in first engaging in the grappling exchanges, which resulted in Jasmine getting the takedown. But it doesn't really look like Jasmine shoots for many takedowns, at least from the tape that I've watched. So really like um, I don't like that she doesn't go for a lot of takedowns. We'll just say that. Um, Add on to that, I don't think she's definitely not very nimble on her feet. Like she's a very slow, prodding type of fighter. Um, so, if I'm Jasmine, the game plan has to be, to take space, get her close against the fence, trap her there, then get into the clinch, and secure a takedown that way. Because I don't think she's going to shoot like an open space takedown. I think she has to get Priscila kind of trapped, and take space away. My biggest worry is that um, if Jasmine starts getting into a striking fight, this could potentially be a parlay buster.
Yeah.
So, for me, most likely staying away from this. I just don't know if, that juice is worth it. Um, but I will say that, the over two and a half is it's pretty interesting to me. Um, clearly the odds are implying that Jasmine is going to win the fight. Um, and I don't believe that Jasmine has round one finishing equity. She has two round one KOs, and these were all back in 2020 in CFFC. And conversely, Priscila has never been knocked out in her career. And then as far as submissions, Jasmine only has one submission victory in the second round, and that was back in 2019. So what I'm trying to say is that if you think that Jasmine is the winning side, um, I would personally rather bet the over 2.5 as opposed to Jasmine money line outright. But again, with that said, I'm still not going to bet the over under. I think just because I do think Priscila, could get a knockout in round one. Like it's a very real a real scenario. So probably staying away.
Yeah. I really like that angle that you mentioned about the over 2.5. I think that is the more correct way to play it here on the Jazz side. So totally agree with that. Let's move on to the next fight that we have here. It's going to be Yohan Lainesse versus Sam Patterson. And this is going to be a fight at 170. So I think that Sam is stepping up from lightweight, right?
Yep,
Yep.
that is
Okay,
correct.
cool. So Yohan, he's 9-2. He's 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off of that submission loss against Mike Malott, who's actually fighting in the main card a little later on. He's going up against Sam Patterson, 10-2-1. He's 4-1 his last five. He's coming off that knockout loss to Yanal Asmov. And right now, the odds for this fight right here, pretty interesting. So Johan's a minus 148 at the moment. He opened up at a minus 125. So not too much movement there, but the odds makers do think that Yohan is the favorite fighter here. And Alex, I'll let you go ahead and break down this welterweight fight. What do you think about it?
Yep. So yeah, this one's interesting. I think there are a couple things working against Sam Patterson's favor here. First is that obviously he's moving up a weight class, so from lightweight to welterweight. So that's going to be like a new experience for him.
Mhm.
Um, us not knowing how he's going to look at welterweight. Second thing is he was just knocked out in his last fight against a lightweight fighter, and so now moving up to welterweight, he's facing even an even harder hitter in Yohan. Um, with that said, though, I kind of do like Sam Patterson as an underdog. uh, so I think 100% he is the more skilled fighter. Um, and I think, in his last fight against Yanal Ashmuse, I think he, got him, Yanal just got him square in the button. And I do think that he will be a lot more careful this time around, Sam Patterson. So, I'm thinking it'll be a decision victory for Sam Patterson. So, I'm also kind of looking at that over 1.5 round line. But my pick is going to be Sam Patterson. I don't know if I will have a bet yet. We'll wait and see.
Nice. Yeah, I actually love the breakdown. I think we're going to be in agreement again, surprisingly, because we're both taking the underdog here, right? So Yohan, finish or bust type of fighter. Hey, this guy just wants to end the fight quick with just power shots. He does have some power. I'm not gonna lie. I think he does have some power. He can if he can't overwhelm the opponents with his power though. I think that they could put him on his back foot where he's just becomes a much weaker fighter, especially the later the fight goes on, because this guy has really questionable cardio. I think he tends to fade pretty hard the later the fight goes. He does have grappling. I mean, he has power takedowns, but I don't know if that's the base of what he's trying to do. I think he's really trying to strike. And for Sam, I think that Sam, if you watch him, he has a good boxing foundation. I think he's able to work in long combos, has good pop and snap on his punches, even the only thing that I don't like, and this is, I was actually, I don't know if I played Yanal, but I picked Yanal to win that fight, is because this guy is like kind of tall and he leaves his chin in the air. He just kind of fights really tall and he's subject to being KO with this defensive style. So I think that in this fight, it's not going to play out that way just because I think that I think I'm more so fading Yohan here. I just do not like the tape that I've seen of him in his recent fights. He seems to just be a kind of a one trick pony. And once you get over the power trick, it's just he becomes just not that great of a fighter in my opinion. Sam also, by the way, I think he has good jiu-jitsu skills, able to use the length and frame to his advantage that he has. I think his takedown defense could use some work. However, once he's on the ground, he does attempt to get back up or reverse position. I think Sam has better cardio as well than Yohan, and his chin has been tested. I mean, he's been KO'd twice in his career so far, both in the first round. This fight will be Sam fighting at 170, so it's going to be the question of whether he'll have, let's say, he'll have better durability because he has to, cut less weight, or maybe there's going to be a chance that he's going to be chinned by, the 170 power compared to the 155 power. So at the moment, I do lean towards Sam just being able to weather Johan's early power and then break down Yohan in later rounds. I think that the official pick that I have right now is Sam via club and sub. I think that in later rounds, he's eventually going to be able to strike and then catch Yohan probably on the ground and then use his jiu-jitsu skills to sub him. I'm just gonna probably stay away from this because I think there's just one too many variables in this fight. However, I think Sam could be a decent live bet play if he survives round one, and then maybe you get him at good odds after that. So that's gonna be my pick there. Yeah, I think Sam could do it. I actually agree with your assessment there. Let's move on to the next fight. We're gonna have Gillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana, and this is gonna be still in the prelims. Now, Gillian Robson, nicknamed the Savage, she's 18, 12 and 18, 12 and 8 actually. And I think she's coming off of that loss against Tabitha Ricci via decision, 3 and 2 in her last five. And she's fighting against Polyana Viana, 13 and 6. And she is 3 and 2 in her last five, coming off that submission loss to Eisman Lucindo. The odds for this fight right now, and it's going to be Jillian Robson coming in at minus 250. She actually opened up at a minus 160. So people have been steadily kind of steaming her towards that direction so far as a favorite. Um, yeah, I think this is going to be another dangerous fight potentially on the card. So Gillian, she's a jujitsu practitioner. I think that she's always looking to get into those kind of grappling fesses, like just constantly just grappling with opponents. She really aggressively hunts for subs, whether she's on top or the bottom. I think she's a much better fighter on the top when she's able to really go for the subs. She's able to do arm bars, chokes pretty well. I think her transitions are also pretty good, and she has decent ground pound on the top. Her takedowns are also pretty okay. It's not like too bad for someone who's just primarily a jiu-jitsu player. She has a 41% takedown accuracy, lands about 2.46 takedowns per fight. The striking for Gillian has improved since she's been in the UFC, but I think that is still below average compared to other fighters that she's fought in her career. Throughout her career, she's constantly been in a negative striking differential situation where her opponents land more strikes than she lands on them. She does have a good gas tank. I think that she threatens subs and can control late. And Viana, on the other side, she's also a good jiu-jitsu fighter. She's active on her back, can sub everywhere. She also likes to go for the arm bars. And Viana is actually pretty content being on her back and will fight from there. I think the difference here is I think Viana is going to be a better striker. She has decent power and is more aggressive on the feet. I just see this fight playing down where I think that Gillian will be able to take down Viana, control her from there, possibly a late sub. I think that Gillian by sub is going to be my pick. I actually think that under 2.5 could be a decent play. I don't say that too often for a women's MMA fight, but I really do see either of these fighters potentially self-destructing in catching each other in a sub or whatnot, or maybe Viana maybe knocking Gillian out. So pick here is Jillian by sub, but I'm probably going to pass on this fight as well. I think that there are better fights in the card that will serve a better purpose for my units at least. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Jillian Robertson and Polyana Viana?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because we're a little bit in agreement again for this
Yeah,
fight. So uh, at least for me, when I'm breaking down this fight, so first thing I noticed, Polyana Viana trains out of the Diego Lima shoot box gym.
nice.
So with Charles Oliveira and those boys. So the striking and the Muay Thai is on point. She, like you said, she also has very slick BJJ to match her striking. I think the only knock on Viana is that she's so easy to get taken down. She accepts bottom position. So she definitely, in my eyes, she definitely does not have that dog in her. Um, But, I think in this fight, she is the more technical fighter, the more skilled fighter. But, how can you trust someone with such low fight IQ? Um, but, with that said, I kind of like Polyana round one finish here. I think it could be a sub or a KO. Um, So, I know you picked Julian Robertson, but I think my pick would be Polyana round one finish. I don't know if it'll be a sub or knockout, but predicting a round one finish.
I can see that. I can see that happening. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not playing Jillian for everybody. Just to let you guys know, I am I'm not doing that. But yeah, I can see that happening. That's why I think the under could be a good play too. I mean, I just feel like both these fighters. It kind of goes against your thinking, right? Sometimes you think that women's MMA should go over automatically, but there are some matchups where both fighters are very likely to go with the under. Let's move on to the next fight that we have on the prelims. And this is actually going to be an interesting fight because this is a rematch of a contender series fight that these two had. So we have Siri City versus Ramon Taveras 2. It's going to be on the prelims of this card. Siri City is 10-1. He is 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of the knockout of Ramon Tavares on the Dana White Contender Series. He is, and Ramon Tavares is 9-2, and he's actually coming off of a knockout win himself on the Contender Series after he lost to Series City on the Contender Series. So both of these guys have some history. Um, just for the pure pickers, just want to let you guys know that I think the reason why they're making this rematch is that it was a controversial early stoppage, if you will. If you looked at the video, I think Series City, he kind of KO'd him, knocked him down, and then I think Ramon was maybe like defending himself a little bit, and then the ref just stepped in and stopped the fight. So that's why I think they're making this fight again. Uh, odds for this fight right now, Siri is actually a minus 175, open up at minus 205. So interesting kind of odds there. Alex, I'll let you break down this rematch first, and I'll give my thoughts after. What do you think about this fight between Siri and Ramon?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I watched Series City's tape first, and I was like, oh wow, he already fought this guy. And then I instantly thought, oh, so how did this Ramon Taveras get into the UFC? And yeah, these guys fought in week 5 of the Dana White Contender Series, and then Ramon Taveras fought again in week 10.
Mm,
So I thought that was pretty funny. Um, but yeah, no, I don't think either of these fighters are very good, to be honest. I think from the first matchup, I think you can probably say that City has a better chin and better durability. So City, he loves throwing head kicks, calf kicks from his right leg. But when he throws them, he leaves himself open a lot, is what I noticed. Taveras, on the other hand, is a very aggressive striker. So he'll throw combinations with a lot of power. So he's very tight with his striking. Um, just looking at the line, I think it is a little bit wide. Um, if I were to bet, I would probably go with Taveras. So
mm.
I think my pick is going to be Taveras.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And just an interesting thing I wanted to point out. So, what do you think the line was the first time they fought? Just want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think the odds were?
Well, okay, having watched both of their fighting styles, I would say that I would say that Taveras would be favored. What was it?
It was actually City that was favored. He was literally the same exact odds that he is right now. So it's really interesting. Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, both these guys, they don't look that good when I kind of see them. I think that I don't know, maybe they ran out of some fighters. They want to just put some Canada on there because of the Siri, and they're like, hey, let's get this guy that he knocked out already. Yeah, I mean, City is actually well-rounded. I think that he has, striking and grappling. He has clean straights, as you saw, able to target the head, the body of his opponents, pressure pretty well. I think he can stalk and hunt his opposition. He eats a lot of leg kicks, though, from what I've seen. I don't think he even checks them. I think that he just likes to eat them and then continue on pressure. I think this is more so just due to his stance and his style and how he fights. Not a bad thing because, I mean, we've seen people who eat leg kicks and just kind of keep on marching on, but, maybe he's going to run into the person that is able to take advantage of this weakness. I just don't think Ramon is that guy, though. I think Ramon is more so just a boxer. He's a quick and fast hands. He has a pretty good one too, but I think the two is the much faster strike, and it kind of catches people off guard sometimes. I think he's able to counter as well, and able to counter forward, going forward, which is something's pretty good. He does work in kicks, but I think they're mainly more towards the body instead of the legs. Uh, I think both these guys prefer to stand up, although City he does have a better grappling background than Ramon. Uh, this is a rematch. I think that I don't know. I just feel like the fight's gonna play out similar to how the first one was. I feel like City would just pressure forward and probably crack Ramon again, and this time he'll probably try to finish it thoroughly. City inside the distance is my pick, but I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not really feeling putting juice odds of someone like that, so I think I'm probably gonna pass on this fight too. Yeah, yeah. All right, let's just move on to the next fight. The next fight that we have here is gonna be some more proven products. So Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. This is gonna be the fight in the featherweight division. Charles Jourdain, he is right now 15-6-1. He's 3-2 in his last five. He's actually coming off of that submission victory over Ricardo Ramos, I think a few months ago. So pretty good win for him. He's fighting against Sean Woodson, 10-1-1. He's coming off of that uh, just thorough, decisive decision victory over Dennis Bazooka. Sean will be the slightly older fighter here, and he's going to have a 9-inch reach advantage, just to let the people know. And also, obviously, he's going to be a much taller guy. Sean Woodson, actually, Charles Jourdain is a minus 183 favorite right now. So he opened up at a minus 135. So some people have been putting some favored odds on Charles Jourdain here. Um, I mean, Charles is a very entertaining and fun fighter to watch for me. Like, I really like watching his style just because he, kind of is balls out, always pumps out volume. I think that he wants to be in your face as well. So that's another entertaining part about him. He's able to move pretty well in the cage and mixes in his punches and kicks. So he does a really good job of using a front kick to push his opponents back when he's kind of moving forward as well. Charles, his grappling is also pretty good. I think he doesn't have the best takedown defense, but he's able to scramble and kind of transition well in grappling exchanges when they happen. I think he's also is able to threaten his opponents in submissions and is active off his back. And Sean Woodson, he comes from more of a boxing background, and it kind of shows. I think that he is able to use his huge reach advantage pretty well and height in most cases, especially at 145. Good boxing technique, manages range pretty well, has a quick jab, and he uses that jab to work in combos. He's also able to kick as well, which I think surprises people at times because his boxing credentials, you assume this guy's like all hands, but I think he's been able to do a pretty good job of just mixing some kicks. And he's able to unload in flurries when his opponent is cornered on the back foot. And in the last fight, he showed a lot of improvement, which is something that I really like. He showed a lot of grappling in the last fight. He already has a solid 80% takedown defense, which is something that he uses all the time because most people would want to try to take this guy down. But I think last fight he unleashed a few takedowns on Dennis Bazooka, right? He was taking this guy down, kind of controlling him, beating him up. So I also think that he has the frame and the arms to threaten with chokes. He hasn't really shown that sub tendencies or skills in the UFC thus far, but I feel like he has the frame for it. This does seem like another kind of difficult fight to predict for me. I think that Woodson, if you look at his record, he's had more trouble with fighters that have a similar frame to him, like a Saldana and then a Julian Erosa, right? Both of those guys are kind of tall and lanky, and I think he lost that fight to Saldana, but it was ended up being a draw because Saldana just took the foot off the gas when he had Woodson kind of in trouble there. And in the Rosa fight, I think Rosa was doing pretty well in that fight too. So at the moment, I'm just gonna lean towards Sean by decision right now. I'm not too confident in that, but I think that he will be able to land quicker and frustrate Jourdain on the feet and on the ground, kind of similar to how Shane Burgos beat Charles Jourdain, right? I think something similar could happen there. So the pick here is Woodson by decision. I'm not too confident though, so I'm not going to play it. But I think it should be a pretty entertaining fight because Charles Jourdain is always an entertaining fight. Alex, what do you think about this fight between Woodson and Jourdain here?
So I think this is definitely a big step up in competition for Woodson. Um, we've seen Sean Woodson hurt bad in his fight against Saldana, as you mentioned. Um, Saldana, interestingly, was also a pretty long fighter. As you said, pretty tall and lanky for his weight class. So Saldana had a 73-inch reach advantage compared to Woodson's 78-inch reach. And I make that point because, although it shows, that although Woodson is very unusually long and rangy. He will engage in the pocket with his opponents. Jourdain has a 69-inch reach, and so although that is shorter than Saldana's 73-inch reach, I think he will have opportunities to hurt Woodson. But like you said, I actually do also think that Sean Woodson has like some sneaky good takedown defense. Um, but I think if Woodson is controlling the octagon and moving forward, which I think he will do, um, I think Jourdain should kind of time takedowns and get top control.
Hmm.
So my pick here is Jourdain. I think he's fought the better competition. So and I think that he has some paths to victory here, but also not 100% confident. So yeah, that's the pick.
Yeah, 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 man. It seems like a running theme throughout the card so far. So hopefully get us some locks somewhere around here. So next fight that we have is Brad Katana versus Garrett Armfield. Um, man, yeah, this is going to be an interesting fight. So Brad Katana, he's 13-2. He's 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that decision victory over Cody Gibson. I think that was the Ultimate Fighter finale. I think that's how he won it, right? So
Hmm.
pretty good job on him. He's actually also Canadian. I didn't know that. His nationality is Canadian. He's fighting against Garrett Armfield, 9-3, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off that knockout against Kazama. That was that was an interesting way to win right there. Garrett's actually going to be the younger fighter here, and he will also have a 5.5-inch reach advantage. Let's go with the odds for this fight right now. Brad Katona is a minus 185. He opened up at a minus 155. So people have been steadily going towards the Katona route for this fight. Alex, what are your thoughts right here about Katona and Armfield?
Yeah, so interestingly, I kind of like Garrett Armfield in this spot as an underdog.
Nice.
Um, I think he's actually pretty, technically, clean with his striking. Um, Armfield, although the same height as Katona, he will have a 5-inch reach advantage. Um, Armfield also trains out of Killcliff FC, so very good gym. And, for Katona, obviously his last fight, he was in an absolute war with Cody Gibson. I remember watching that fight; it was crazy. Um, it's funny because I rewatched it and I thought it was funny because they kept mentioning that Cody Gibson was an AP English teacher. Um, yeah. Uh, so both guys took a lot of damage from that fight, and so that's what I noticed. But Katona, to his credit, he's never been submitted nor KO'd. And we know that Katona has very good cardio. So, it's going to be interesting to see if Armfield can get Katona out of there in the first or second round. Um, I just think that Armfield is a much cleaner striker than Cody, and Cody was able to, dish out a lot of damage. And I also think that Armfield was actually going toe to toe in the grappling exchanges with David Onama, and that was at featherweight. And so, um, yeah, I like Armfield's kind of like guts, and so yeah, give me Armfield in this matchup.
Nice. Yeah. Um, man, wish I could pick a side thoroughly here, but man, I feel like I'm gonna probably stay away from this too. Just a spoiler alert for this fight. So Brad, I think he's also solid all around. He's an Ultimate Fighter veteran. I mean, he's won two of these actually. He's won two tournaments of the Ultimate Fighter. So this is actually his second stint in the UFC. His striking, it's more so brawling. It can be technical when he needs it to, but I feel like this guy's more so of a brawler. He's able to close the distance pretty well, though, given his style and his reach, his good pop in his shots. I think he's a solid wrestler, likes to apply pressure and commit to those shooting, those takedowns, solid control as well. The one area that I really like about Katona and why I think that he is in the UFC is just his gas tank and his kind of overall durability. And this guy has really good cardio. I mean, to be able to win the Ultimate Fighter twice, where you're kind of fighting a whole bunch of fights condensed into a few, weeks or months, it shows you that this guy really loves to fight. Um, I think that that's where the separation is going to be. I mean, Garrett Armfield, I think he has solid skills, like you mentioned. I think that, the jab is good. He has good leg kick. He's able to also target the body as well for some body shots. His wrestling's also good. I mean, decent takedowns. I think his scrambles are okay as well. I do think that he has a cardio disadvantage here, though. And it's going to be interesting to see if the fight goes into round 2 and 3, where Katona is known to turn it on, right? This guy has proven to just keep that pace or even get better throughout the fight. Um, that's just why I'm leaning towards Brad by decision. It's like a low to mid confidence for me. I actually think that it's similar to what you said about Jasmine and the over 2.5, right? I feel like I'd rather have the over 2.5 because I don't think that personally I don't think that Armfield will finish Katona, and I don't think Katona will finish Armfield either, just based on these guys' skill set so far. So I think that I'll rather play the over 2.5 at minus 172, but most likely I'll decide by weigh-ins whether I want to even play this fight, either going by Brad by decision or the over 2.5. But for now, I think I'm just gonna stay away from it. But I could be convinced as we get closer and closer to weigh-ins because I think that it's a future prelim for a reason, and I think that they want to push one of these guys. So, and did you know that Brad was Canadian? I didn't know that. That's why I looked at it. I didn't know this guy was
I didn't know
from
either.
Canada. Yeah,
I saw on Tapology that he was Canadian, so I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's interesting.
It's very surprising. I thought this guy was not Canadian, so that's kind of weird. All right, so let's just move on to the main card. I think that I think we're going to get some good action here in the main card. I feel like the prelims were definitely a journey to find some locks, but maybe we can find some good plays here. So let's first start off with the feature prelim of the night, and it's going to be Arnold Almighty Allen versus Movsar Evloev. This is going to be a fun fight, in my opinion. Arnold Allen, he's 19-2. He's 4-1 his last five, coming off of that decision loss to Max Holloway, the BMF himself. He's fighting against Movsar Evloev, 17-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that decision victory over Diego Lopez. They're both around the same age, and the frame wise, they're kind of similar. Evloev does have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. Evloev right now, he is a minus 191 favorite, um, and he opened up at a minus 170. So not too much action has happened, although people have been taking Movsar a little bit more. Arnold Allen, I mean, I've seen this guy fight a lot of times, actually. He's a good all-round fighter. I think he has not too many weaknesses as well. His striking, power in his shots, I think he has good power. He's able to counter well. He also has a good, quick jab. I think that his movement is actually pretty good for guys his size in the division. He's average volume, though. I just wish that Arnold Allen threw a little bit more. I feel like he just fights that kind of that UK European kind of style where it's like kind of lowish volume, right? And it's just sometimes it's not good for the optics. The only time, let's say that I remember when he unleashed against Dan Hooker, that was fantastic. Like I wish that he just fought like that more because I feel like it would just look better for the judges when he fights like that. But he does have a pretty patient approach to striking until he can explode. His grappling's also solid across the board. I think he has good top control, is able to defend subs pretty well. 76% takedown defense, and he prefers to work himself back up to make it a stand-up fight. So he does try to get back up. He's able to offensively grapple. I think he uses the cage more so than just, kind of blasting single leg, double legs. Uh, he works in those takedowns. He does have not that great of a gas tank, though. I think that he does seem to wear down the later on the fight goes. It's still solid, but as you saw in that 5 round fight against Max Holloway, I mean, I just think that his time to win the fight was like the first 3 rounds, and I mean, he barely maybe took a round off of Max Holloway. Now, Max Holloway is probably, the best fighter in that division outside of Max. I mean, outside of Volkanovski right at the moment. But, I just don't think his cardio is all the way there yet. If his cardio was a little better, he could probably contend a little bit more for the championship. Movsar Evloev, I mean, top tier wrestler. He knows who he is, commits to the game plan. He chain wrestles with the best of them, relentless pace, grappling pressure. He prefers to keep dominant positions over chasing subs. He's the typical wet blanket kind of approach. I think that his ground pound is kind of clean, but it's not like fight ending. And Evloev's striking is decent, but he just mainly tries to set up his takedowns with the striking. I think the wrestling threat actually, and it's kind of like how Khabib did it. I think his wrestling threat just makes him a better striker than he is because people are just worried about him shooting like double single legs at them or tripping them. He is accurate in his strikes though. The one thing I do like about Evloev is that he does have the cardio to do this game plan of wrestling and fighting for all 3 rounds at least. 17-0, all 7 wins so far in the UFC have been decision wins. So he's 7-0 in decisions. I think that most likely Movsar will wet blanket Allen for 3 rounds. This might be a 29-28 at worst. I see this fight really being similar to the Fareed Basharat fight and Taylor Lapilus fight. However, I think that Allen's much better than Taylor, so we're gonna. I don't know. It gives me some hesitancy because I could see Allen just punishing this guy on the feet until those take. Let's say that the takedowns don't work anymore for whatever reason, and it could get a little dicey pretty quick. So I think it's gonna be a close decision. I think Movsar by decision is something that will be my pick. However, I really like the over 2.5 at minus 340. I think that that's a solid parlay anchor piece that you can put on because I think that this fight will mainly go to decision. I don't see a finish happening either way. Maybe Allen knocking this guy out, but I don't think so. I think this guy is 17-0 for a reason. Like I don't think he's gonna try to get knocked out here. I think he's gonna try to just kind of hug his nuts, if you will, or die trying. So, Alex, what do you think about this fight between Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it pretty short here because you literally hit all the points that I wanted to say. So for me, tough to pick a side here. Um, if Arnold Allen was higher volume, I think I would probably side with him. It's literally what I have. I think both of these fighters are very high level guys. Um, I think the move is just to throw the over 2.5 into the parlays because both fighters are so durable. It's tough to see either side getting a finish. So I don't know who's gonna win. I think I would side with Evloev, but I'm gonna be looking to throw that over 2.5 into parlays.
Yes, let's attack that. I think that's going to be a good piece for a lot of people. So let's do it. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Power Bar is his nickname. Pretty cool pretty cool nickname actually. So Chris Curtis, he is 30-10. He's coming off of a kind of a no contest clash of heads against Nasruddin Imavov, and now he's 36, so he's getting a little older as far as his career. He's fighting against Marc-Andre Barriault, 16-6. I believe that he's coming off of that win over Eric Anders, a decision win. Yeah, decision win. So odds for this fight right now, Chris Curtis is a minus 192, and he actually opened up at a minus 160. Alex, what are your thoughts between Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre here?
Yeah. So my pick here is Chris Curtis. Um, I think his boxing is super slick, and he's very good at mixing in kicks as well. Um, I feel like both of these fighters are probably going to stand and bang for the most part. Um, Although Chris doesn't throw the most volume, I think when he does land, it really gets felt by the opponent. So I just have a feeling that Chris is going to wobble Marc-Andre here. I feel like he's going to tag him and pin him against the cage and kind of tee off. So in terms of a like a pick, I'm picking Chris Curtis, but I'm also going to be looking at some of these late round KO props for
Mhm.
Chris Curtis. I think depending on the odds, there could be some good value there. So I'm going to keep an eye on that.
Definitely. Okay. So yeah, I mean, Chris is a pretty good boxer. He loves to counter with the power. Boxing is his base and attack style. He uses a shell kind of defense, similar to Sean Strickland, but I think that his is just a little bit more counter based and not like forward based like Strickland. He doesn't pump out that 1-2 like Strickland does that much. He more so waits until his opponents kind of miss on his arms, and then he just goes in with the counter hooks or the counter straights. Um, he does have pretty compact and tight combos though, and he has power in the hands to really end the fights as well. He's caught a lot of people this way. If you look at his resume, he also works the body pretty well, which is something that I like. Now, Chris has shown a great 92% takedown defense. However, that last fight was really eye opening to me. I thought that he was going to do much better against Nazardine, and Nazardine took him down 3 times before the clash of the heads, and Nazardine was obviously winning the fight before. So, and the odds were pretty close too. So I was just really surprised that Chris looked that bad compared to Nazardine. Uh, he is durable though, and he has a good solid gas tank. I think that Marc-Andre has solid all round skills. He's a decent striker, likes to come forward with volume. His striking defense could improve. However, with the style that he fights, I mean, I feel like he relies more so on just the chin and the toughness that he has. His grappling is not the best. I think he's just a maybe average wrestler, maybe a little below average. He more so likes to use the cage and control his opponents from there. Prefers to clinch as well. Marc-Andre does have a good gas tank, and he constantly pumps out some action. So I believe that either this will be a Chris Curtis counter KO or a Marc-Andre decision. Right now, I'm leaning towards Chris Curtis KO. I think that most likely Marc-Andre will just continue to move forward, and Curtis will just catch him enough times until he chins Marc-Andre, pretty much. I think that that's going to be their game plan. Really, the only hesitation that I have right now, because this should be a tailor-made opponent for Chris Curtis to knock out, given what we've seen him do before. But he just did not look that great against Evloev, and I'm concerned that he is getting a little bit old. He's like 36 right now, and I just don't think that fighters get better as they age. Uh, but I do think Evloev is a little better than Marc-Andre. I mean, this is going to be a step down in competition for sure. Because yeah, so give me Curtis by KO. As of now, I'm staying away, but by weigh-ins, I could be convinced of putting Curtis in a parlay. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would just need to see how they kind of look at the face-offs, the weigh-ins. But yeah, right now the pick is going to be Curtis by KO. Let's move on to the next fight here, and this is going to be a really fun fight for as long as it lasts. It's going to be Mike Malott versus Neil Magny. Neil Magny, the Hastings sensation, he's 28-11. He is 2-3 in his last five. He's coming off that decision loss against Ian Gary, 36 years old. He's fighting against Mike Proper Malott, 10-1-1. He's 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that submission victory over Adam Fugit. And the odds right now, I mean, this is pretty fun odds. So Mike is actually at minus 400, opened up at a minus 300. So There hasn't really been that much love for the Magny train. It's just been kind of a steady steam of Mike Malott so far in the last few weeks. Alex, I'll let you go ahead and break down this fight first. What do you think about Malott versus Magny here?
Yeah, so I think that Mike Malott should win this fight handedly. Um, Similar to the last UFC Canada card, he will be the final Canadian to fight.
Mm,
So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, I kind of look at Mike Malott as a rising star. The way he carries himself in the presser, etc. I think, overall, I think the UFC is trying to build him up, especially, putting him in, the this Toronto card. Um, he's a very, very clean striker, in my opinion. Obviously, a great grappler, five first round submissions. But it is a step up in competition against a high IQ fighter like Magny. But I think Malott gets it done here.
yeah, yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I mean, Neil is a good striker, uses the range pretty well. I think that aside from eating a whole bunch of leg kicks from Ethan Gary, I mean, I think he does strike pretty well defensively, but you saw in that last matchup, I mean, sometimes the future is now, right? Sometimes these new age guys are going to come up with some techniques that he might not be prepared for. His grappling is also decent. I mean, he's able to offensively wrestle, good top pressure. He really loves to clinch, though. That's like the Neil Magny signature. I mean, this guy loves himself a clinch fest. Uh, he has the cardio to fight that way for 15 minutes. So, he's a classic gatekeeper. Fights his style, and if you can get through him, that's kind of a preview of what the rest of the rankings are going to be, pretty much. Um, Mike, powerful hands, kicks have good pop in them as well. I think this guy is pretty strong as far as the striking. Uh, he's able to use his range pretty well. I think he finds his range pretty quickly, and that's just something that's like a fight IQ thing, something that is a technique thing as well. So he finds his range pretty quickly, and then once he finds it, just starts hammering, tries to finish the fight pretty quickly. He also has solid leg kicks, so that's something that I'm definitely worried for Magny. I feel like his leg kicks could go through. I do think that Mike is a little hittable. It might not matter too much in this specific fight because I don't think Magny is that dangerous. But in the future, I think that that's something that he will need to rectify to continue to advance in the rankings. Because let's say that he matches up against a guy like Ian Gary, Ian Gary's also a sniper himself, or let's say he matches up with Jeff Neal, right? Sometimes you don't want to be taking those shots in the face like that. Malott, I will give him that he's actually a pretty good grappler as well. Good jiu-jitsu skills, really smart about his subs, gets into the subs pretty quickly. He's able to get back up as well from the takedowns. The only thing about Malott so far is that his cardio is kind of unproven. He's only been out of the first round once in his entire career. I think that was the last fight that he had against Adam Fugit. Um, Other than that, I mean, I truly believe that Magny's time as a gatekeeper, at least for the ranked people, it's come to an end. That last fight that he had against Ian Gary, although he's on short notice, I mean, he didn't look good at all. He just like Ian Gary was just styling on this guy. Neil basically lost both of his legs. That's just not a good sign. He just has been less impressive with each passing fight. So similar to kind of exactly your point. I mean, I think the UFC is trying to make a new star in Canada. They're starting for it. They seem to be feeding Magny because he does have good name value, has some good ranking, and I think this is just kind of the same thing that they did with Ian Gary. This is going to be a kind of a feeding frenzy, and I think Mike inside the distance is going to be the play here. Most likely, it's going to be a sub though. I mean, Neil Magny just gets subbed all the time if you look at his record. But I'm more likely to play Mike Malott in a parlay. I think he's very safe to parlay, actually. I've been seeing some love, by the way, on social media about Neil Magny might take this one. So I want to see the receipts when when this happens because I just don't see it.
Um,
But yeah, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think this is gonna be a proper beatdown for Mike Malott here. Let's move on to the co-main event. This is gonna be man, yeah, it's gonna be a interesting co-main event here that the UFC put for Canada. They got Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Um, yeah, so Rocky Pennington, came off of a split decision victory over Ketlin Vieira. The last fight, she's 15-8, 5-0 in her last five. Um, she is, kind of contending for the fight, right? I mean, contending for the championship, right? Because Amanda Nunes kind of vacated the title after retiring. Um, Maya Bueno Silva, she's 10-2. She is coming off of that kind of. Do they call it a no contest now, or what is it officially on the record books?
Let me see real quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
because
I'm not by that.
yeah, because I mean, basically she subbed Holly Holm, but I think that she was on some kind of medication for her ADHD or something, and then they said no, so
Yeah, no contest.
it's a no contest. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically she subbed Holly Holm, but I guess they changed that because she got caught doping, if you will. Um, yeah, I mean, let's go over the odds. I mean, Mayra Bueno Silva minus 157. She opened up at minus 155, so not a lot of action on this fight, what I've seen. Um, Alex, I'll let you break down this fight first, man. What do we think about Mayra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still a little bit salty because that Mara Buena Silva, I had her last fight against Holly Holm. I had Holly Holm was like I had her in a lot of parlays, and so I was gonna win big if she had gotten it done. But man, yeah, she got submitted. Then a few months later, they they said she was caught doping, so she felt like DraftKings didn't issue a refund. So a lot of bullshit with this girl, man. But I think this fight is it's tough to call. I think Silva definitely throws harder. Um, I think all of the finishing equity belongs to Myra Buena Silva here. Um, I don't see a scenario where Myra can potentially get finished. With that said, though, I think Pennington does throw decent volume. She usually from watching her tape, she does like this burst off of her back foot into kind of like a flurry of jabs. It's kind of interesting. So I can also see her chipping away and winning rounds off of that volume. But my pick is Silva. I think she made a comment about how she said nobody's really excited about this fight. But I know I'm not, but she said she promises that she's gonna put on a show. So yeah, give me her, even though she fucked me over.
Um, yeah, I still, even as I was saying, man, I can't believe this is the co-main event for the fight card. Yeah, it just shows you that the 135-pound division for the women's right now is in a really bad state because the Lioness left, and right now people are kind of fighting for scraps, right? So, yeah. Raquel, I mean, her striking it actually is okay. I mean, it's decent, right? I mean, she fights well in the pocket. I think she can dirty box, throw some knees. She really targets the body as well, pressures forward. She's also extremely durable as well. Um, Her grappling is, I mean, I think she's a well-rounded fighter. I mean, she's a good wrestler, uses the cage to her advantage. She also likes to make it a clinch fest, right? She's like, her fighting style is very likely to end up in some kind of decision if things go her way, usually. She controls the opposition on the cage in the clinch. She also does a good job of once they break off the clinch, she also strikes. Like she attacks first off of the break. So that's just something that she's accumulated upon years and years of fight IQ. Good submission defense as well, which is something that could be a detriment for Mayra Bueno Silva. Only one loss in her career by submission, and that was in 2012. So that's like 12 years ago, pretty much for Raquel Pennington. Um, Bueno Silva, I mean, the striking is solid. I think that she has better kicks than hands. I think she's able to land some leg kicks, body kicks. Uh, the grappling is also good in terms of just the jiu-jitsu. Active on the ground, hunts for subs, has a really nasty armbar. I think that her takedown game and just accuracy overall in terms of the takedowns could use some work. If she gets it to where her jiu-jitsu skills are, I think she could be a force to be reckoned with. However, right now at the moment, her takedown accuracy is 50%, and she literally averages 0.35 takedowns per fight. So not good there. So Bueno Silva also has a gas tank that has faded in the past, especially in the later rounds. And this being a 5 round fight, I mean, against a person like Raquel Pennington, who's just known to go to decision, win or loss. Most most recently has been more wins. Uh, So the pick that I do have here is just based off of a hunch. I think that Bueno Silva, she sees the opportunity in front of her. I think that this is her opportunity to become the new face of, this division, right? She subbed Holly Holm, even though it was, later to no contest, but she subbed Holly Holm. I think that she is going to try to put on a show, and she's going to try to submit Raquel Pennington in a spectacular fashion. She's going to try to make it in spectacular fashion. So my pick here is Bueno Silva. I think that this time away, since she got busted for popping, I think that she's improved in the background. She's ready for this title fight. I feel like the UFC is just ready for a new star, at least in that division, and I don't think that that new star is Rocky Pennington. So give me MBS here, but I'm staying away from this fight. I'm not. I don't know. I think when this fight comes on, I'm probably just gonna wait for the Strickland fight to come on. Maybe take take a break or something like that. But I think Miles Brandon Silva will get the sub done. Let's move on to the main event. This is going to be really fun. I think that even though that co-main wasn't great, I think that this main event is going to be good enough to make up for it. So I'm really excited for it. We have Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, DDP. Oh man, I'm really excited for this fight. Now, Sean Strickland, he is 28-8-5. He's coming off of that decision championship victory over Izzy Adesanya, fighting against Dricus du Plessis. Still knocks 20-2, 5-0 in his last five, coming off that knockout victory and bully beatdown of Robert Whitaker. Um, these guys both have the same frame, 6'1" and 76-inch reach. So that's something that's interesting. Odds for this fight right now, Sean Strickland is a minus 139, and he opened up at a minus 190. So people have been more so taking the dog odds on DDP there. Alex, I'll let you go ahead and break down this main event first. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts, man. What are your thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this fight. I think so. My pick is going to be DDP. Um, I was just so impressed with his last fight against Whitaker. Uh, I, I gave DDP like zero chance against Whitaker. I remember I had Whitaker in a lot of parlays,
Yeah,
um, just because I thought Whitaker was gonna, you know, take this finally, stop him because the knock on DDP is that he very bad technical ability, but the way he was able to just kind of bully and overpower Whitaker was very impressive. And obviously Sean Strickland has had a very impressive three three fight run. Most notably his last fight against Izzy. But man, yeah, that Izzy fight was like very weird because obviously Izzy he had that like DUI thing.
Yeah.
Izzy also, maybe he thought his opponent was going to be DDP, but then it like DDP had the surgery, I think, and so Strickland stepped in, and so maybe Izzy wasn't 100% prepared for like for that fight. He wasn't taking training camp, completely seriously, and so if Izzy had, won that fight, then obviously, a Strickland versus DDP fight, I feel like DDP would then be favored. So, yeah, I think I'm going DDP here. Curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Sean Strickland, I want to give him his roses right now. I mean, this is a guy that I've been constantly just saying, man, I actually like watching his fights. It may seem boring sometimes to some people, it may seem like a sparring session, but the way this guy fights is actually, if you look at it, like I think it's just super clean. And also he moves forward as well. So it's just very interesting. Like you don't really see that too often that people move forward and they fight really clean like him. Top tier boxer, in my opinion. I think he constantly also does a good job of like parrying his opponent's punches, catching them as well. Pumps out high volume pace. I think he has a really good jab, especially at 185. His striking defense is really hard to figure out for a lot of people, except if you're Poitin, Alex Pereira, right? So that's kind of where I see some holes in his defenses. If you have a knockout artist, if you have a someone that is just obviously stronger than him, and Jared Cannonier or Kamaru Usman, like these are just matchups where he does tend to fade a little bit more. Aside from that, I mean, he stalks his opponents well, uses footwork to cut off the cage, which is something I really like about Sean Strickland. He does have kicks, especially the front kick. He uses that pretty well to just back up his opponents. Um, just not the best power and strength in his strikes, though. He really likes to play the long game and kind of loves to just spar, kind of like sparring session. He wants to tire his opponents out and then unload the flurries and the combos when he sees them gassed. His grappling is also solid. He came into the UFC more known as a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? He had a lot of jiu-jitsu skills, and then he kind of turned himself into the sparring, boxing kind of legend, if you will, in the UFC. He has an 84% takedown defense. Great job of just not accepting bottom and works his way back up no matter what. I think that the biggest weapon aside from his defensive approach in boxing is that he does have good cardio, good gas tank, can easily last 5 rounds fighting this style. His striking is pretty nonstop in the early and the mid rounds, and then he can fight pretty smart later on in the later rounds. As for DDP, I mean, this guy's a powerful striking, brawling kind of unorthodox really style. I haven't really seen a guy fight like this like ever. This guy is he just looks like it doesn't look good at all in my opinion. But like for whatever reason, when he lands on you, like he lands on you kind of clean, and you know the power from his shots are just like at this point otherworldly. I mean, like it's it's a very powerful kind of striking style. Um, he actually pumps out more volume than Strickland. If you just look at it based on the numbers of what they've done so far, which is something that's pretty surprising. He wants to end the fight pretty quickly at all times. Not the best striking defense, but he has really good durability, and his chin is. He loves to trace shots as well, and usually his shots are landing harder than the other person's shots, as will be the case here. DDP also has great grappling. I also think that he just has this ape kind of strength. Like this guy is just really freaking strong. Out muscles his opponents mainly. He does have solid techniques and some trips and some takedowns at times, but he's just really strong. And once he's on top, he can just easily finish the fight from there. Like he has good ground and pound. He's able to lock in subs as well. This guy's well versed in the submission game. Even though it might not look like it, I also think that he has a good cardio as well. Uh, a lot of his fights, right? This guy looks like he's breathing for his last breath in rounds two, rounds three. But he just has this this fighting kind of spirit and this vigor to just constantly do it. And it seems like he's not getting like it seems like he's tired, but I don't think he is. Just from what I've seen, like he just has a killer mindset. I think the main point I want to get across is that I feel like this guy just likes to beat ass. Like he just like really likes to like beat up his opponents. Um, and that's a scary thing coming across the cage against, right? I mean, that's literally what happened to Robert Whittaker. I think Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, a very game fighter, championship level fighter, and that dude just straight got bullied in that cage for 2 rounds. We saw the lasting image of that fight. Robert Whittaker was literally just covering up like this, waiting for the ref to stop the fight, waiting for the coach to come and kind of throw the towel. Like it looked really bad. So I think that I just can't deny DDP anymore. I faded him hard as you did against Bobby Knuckles. Uh, After that fight, I was like, man, the next time this guy fights, I don't care if it's Izzy, I don't care if it's Poitin, I don't care if it's anything. Like I'm not fading this guy. Give me him at any odds. So give me DDP inside the distance. I think he's gonna finish this within three, more likely two, in my opinion, based on how both these guys fight. And I actually think he's good money line dog play. I actually do. I think that these odds are just tailor made for people to play it, honestly. Who knows? Maybe a trap, right? But I just can't refuse the dog odds on DDP at this point. I feel like he should be favored in mostly every fight that he's going to fight until he faces, some otherworldly kind of threat. But for now, give me DDP at those dog odds plus 119. It might get better. I don't know, but I think this is probably where it's going to land. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the UFC 297 breakdown. What a journey this was in order to find some good plays and some blocks that we like. Uh, Alex, man, do you have any final thoughts about this card or just anything as a whole?
Uh, just that, I think again, you kind of highlighted the last card was kind of easy in terms of picking, which side was going to win. This fight card looks a little bit tough, but I'm still pretty confident in pure picks, in the picks that we have and that we're going to put on, Bet MMA tips. So I think we're going to keep the train moving.
Yeah, and we've been pumping out constant green out there. So yeah, definitely look for that when it drops, guys. Other than that, just enjoy the show. I mean, I think this is going to be even though it's kind of hard to predict, I think there are going to be some fun fights in there, especially the main event. So please tune in, and yeah, we'll see you guys for next time. Best of luck, everybody. Pure Pickers, we're out.